Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 218th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How you doing today, Kyle?
Honestly, Cameron, I don't really know yet. It's like 6 something in the morning.
Yes.
It might be approaching 7 at this point, but I don't think I've lived enough day to really know how the day's going.
Well, then it should be great.
Okay, well, maybe that's...
So far, so good.
That's a good way to look at it. First thing in the morning.
Fresh slate.
Here with the boys, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go trick-or-treating this Halloween?
No, I didn't. Did I go trick-or-treating?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Did you have a happy Halloween?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of like the Grinch of Halloween. At least the last couple of years, we haven't handed out candy. So
wow,
I know that'll change someday, but just didn't happen this year. What about you?
Olivia, 13 months old, so she got to enjoy Halloween a little bit more this year. She went as a drummer, like a rock and roll drummer.
It's a great costume. I did see that.
Yeah. Thank you. She's not eating candy yet, so we just took her to see grandparents and show off her costume, basically.
She had like the fake tattoo sleeves. Yes. That's pretty cool.
I tricked one of my little brothers. He was looking at her costume, and I said, yeah, she cried a lot when we gave her the tattoos, but it was worth it for the costume. And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? But, yeah, good Halloween. A little different with a baby. Not quite as much going on, but it's all right. Halloween, historically, my favorite holiday. All right, what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about basketball a little bit. First games this coming week, and we're going to talk about the big South Carolina win and Kentucky preview. Before we do all of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a review if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. Patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod. Let's jump into basketball. The first thing I want to talk about was the SEC coaches published their All-SEC teams, preseason teams, and Kobe Brown, first team All-SEC, according to the coaches. I think he was second team from the AP or something. I don't know. And interestingly, Isaiah Mosley not found in any of the preseason teams that I've seen. So a little bit of a snub there, I think.
Do you think that has anything to do with him just like coming from a small school?
I guess. I don't know. I feel like it is that and the destination being Missouri. Mm-hmm. I feel like goes into it.
Kobe was on the first team coaches.
Yeah.
It seems like a little bit of a familiarity thing for sure. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't say that every team is. They're trying to get representation from every team. Maybe they are. I don't know. But when you think of Missouri basketball, the last like 3 seasons, you're probably thinking of Kobe Brown for sure.
Yeah.
I would definitely say Isaiah Mosley has a better shot at being on the postseason awards more so than the preseason one, just because they haven't seen him yet.
If he transferred to Arkansas, though, I feel like, one of the best scorers in mid-major going to a preseason top 10 team or whatever.
Yeah, were there any of the Arkansas transfers or the freshmen or anything?
Just the freshmen. And obviously, like, Oscar Tshiebwe and Xavier Wheeler were both first team. Mm-hmm. And I think Tennessee had 2 guys on first team. So definitely Kobe Brown looking like he's in good company there, but I would say he and Mosley both have a shot to make the postseason list, I think.
Speaking of Arkansas, did you hear they got beat by like 30 points in like a preseason exhibition?
I did hear that.
Was it Texas? I think they played?
Yeah. Texas is going to be, I think, a top 5 team all year.
Yeah, Texas is really good, and Arkansas, I mean, they'll, I'm sure, get better as the season goes on just because of the makeup of their team, but it's still kind of nice to see them just getting destroyed early on.
Although, maybe with that, they'll realize they're not as good as they thought and bring everything together earlier.
Ooh. Well, I don't like that.
No.
I thought you were going to say they just spiral out of control because they...
I feel like with them, honestly, it is... I don't see Arkansas being just good unless they have a pretty big transformation over the course of the year. I feel like they'll either be incredible or awful. Extremes, I think.
I'll take my chances.
But the basketball team has an exhibition game against Washington University tonight. It is currently Thursday morning. They're playing Washington University this evening. So that'll be fun. It is on SEC Network Plus streaming, I think. So maybe try to watch it. I'm going to try.
I'll figure it out.
And then Monday night, they play Southern Indiana. Southern Indiana, it is their first year as a Division I basketball program. They're 258th in KenPom. This should be another tune-up game. I don't know. Not much to say about it, honestly.
How many teams are in Division I now? Is it like over 360?
I can find out.
It feels like there's been some new teams added, but and to just immediately be in the 200s.
Yeah,
not bad.
363.
These first few games are way more about just kind of figuring out the rotation, figuring out how many guys are going to play regularly, and how they're going to make an impact and all that stuff. I don't think we're going to see any kind of UMKC situations here.
Speaking of who's starting, Coach Gates was quoted as saying that he feels like they have 8 players who are all starting caliber, and he thinks they are 11 to 12 guys deep on who can contribute.
Well, that's kind of consistent, honestly, with what we've been thinking. Is like, I don't know. It just kind of depends on maybe who they're playing or how
he
they
said
want to.
The starting lineup will change based on matchups.
Yeah, so like that makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of guys that I view kind of equally as far as how they can contribute, just depending on who they're playing or how they want to roll it out.
Yeah, when we've been trying to figure out who's going to play and stuff, there's this group of bench players. Well, we've even said, there's like 2 guys that are fringe starting caliber that we don't know if they're going to start, and then there's another set of guys coming off the bench that who do you leave off?
Right.
Like, we wish we could give all these guys 10 minutes plus per game.
For sure.
But somebody's not going to be able to get the minutes.
Yeah, there's going to be, which is a good problem to have, but you're going to have guys coming from, star roles in a lower level that will not play very much.
Yeah.
And in previous seasons, that definitely would not have happened.
This is these first few games every year. It's just fun seeing how the team moves the ball, like just seeing them all work together. I don't know. There's something different about it for me, the first few basketball games versus football, where I feel like with football, I kind of know, they're going to run football plays. And with basketball, it's such a fluid thing watching them play, and, it's just go, go, go. I don't know. It's just more exciting for me looking at how that'll all come together and progress throughout the season. So I'm excited. Anything else basketball?
I think that's pretty much it. Happy to have, like you said, real basketball to watch and kind of take stock of how everything looks and talk about it a lot the next few months.
All right, switching gears to football. Missouri had a huge win on the road, top 25, South Carolina. Missouri won 23-10. Dominant performance by the defense. Offense held their own, especially in the first half. I was thrilled. I mean, and I think you can feel it this week. I think the Mizzou fan base is buzzing a little bit after this win. And I think we can all admit that South Carolina is not one of the top 25 teams in the country. But they were ranked 25th, and going to their place and beating them, I can't take anything away from Missouri's performance.
Yeah, I think we would have even agreed last week that South Carolina was kind of a fraudulent top 25 team for sure. But, man, it felt really good beating a team that felt like they had a lot of swagger, honestly. Yeah. I think it's kind of easy to diagnose like how they maybe weren't as good as they felt like they were, and we even said that last week. They hadn't really beaten anybody, and they kind of struggled against anyone decent they had played. But I still feel like that was a team that, with a new quarterback and some new talent injected into the team and a coach that, has a lot of energy and little bit of ego. It felt really good to come out of there, like you said, dominantly. Honestly, it never really seemed like Missouri was not going to win that game.
Yeah, South Carolina was a team that we identified in the preseason as like a measuring stick type of team for Missouri, and we said that's the type of team you have to beat if you want to, be in the top half of at least the division at the end of the season. And so they're making progress towards that, and I think Missouri, looking as good as they did in this game, plus some of their close losses, we've won 2 in a row in SEC play. Vanderbilt, it was an ugly game. This much better tasting win here against South Carolina, but it's still 2 in a row and a lot of momentum. Going in the beginning of this game, I was honestly pretty pessimistic. Missouri went 3 and out and immediately was losing the field position battle. And I was like going to this place mentally where I was thinking, here we go. They're starting at the 6-yard line or whatever, and they're going to go 3 and out, punt. Probably South Carolina's going to have the ball around the 50-yard line, and we're just going to slowly
just lose the field position battle.
Yep, and inevitably South Carolina will score with a short field
and win 10-7.
Yeah. So then Missouri completely proved me wrong and went 96 yards for a touchdown. That was an incredible drive, 15 plays, and they set the tone there. It was like, we're here to play. The offense was moving the ball all first half. Brady Cook ran in the touchdown. They looked really good.
Yeah, I feel like South Carolina is one of those teams where they do have talent and a little bit of swagger, but if you come out hitting them in the mouth, I feel like they fold, and that's kind of what happened in this game, especially after that drive. It was like that. It took so long. It was like almost 7-minute drive, and Missouri was running the ball well, and the offensive line was getting some push and stuff, and I felt like South Carolina was just like, we're not getting up for this game today. Like, we're not doing this. And that kind of just stayed that way throughout the game. But it felt like, Missouri their offense has been really bad. Like, we've talked about it all season. But it still felt like there was some regression that was in store, like, positively, just based on, the way that the defense has been playing and how close we've been in some of these really competitive games. It felt like eventually we're going to, push through and win one of these games, and not only win it, but play really well the whole game and really dominate a decent team. Yeah. So that was great to see here. Yeah. Sorry, I kind of went back to like pre-game talk.
Going into this game, I was feeling like, are we ever going to do that? Is this just going to be every game is a struggle and we're going to lose the toss-up games? And like, that's the way it had been going for so long. So refreshing. Talking about Brady Cook specifically, he had that touchdown run on the first touchdown drive. Overall, 17 of 26 passing for 224 yards, no touchdowns, more importantly, no interceptions. So that's the type of game that we need from him. Good ball security, not making... He still made some huge plays in this game, but you don't need to be throwing touchdown passes to have a huge impact, and the bigger impact is not turning the ball over.
Yeah, honestly, if the offense plays like this against Auburn, we easily win, and against Georgia, even in that second half, we might pull that out. Yeah. So it still, wasn't incredible. Yeah, they weren't putting up crazy numbers, but they were playing winning football, and they just did what they needed to do, did their jobs.
He ran the ball really well all game, too.
Yeah, he was making great reads.
South Carolina was basically daring him to take off, and they were trying to lock down everything else, and so when he had the opportunity, he just took off for first down here and there, had one big run in the second half. You mentioned making good reads. That was, even in the passing game, he seemed to be going through his progressions well, but there's a few times where he didn't even need to. Like the first, Dominic Lovett was open a lot, and they got it to him in creative ways. I was happy to see, of course, Brady Cook got credit for those 1-foot passes in the backfield, and those were receiving yards for Lovett. So kind of inflated the stats a little bit, but those two have a great connection, and we have to keep that up.
Yeah, Dominic Lovett is elite. There's really no other way to to put it at this point. And he's got to stay healthy for this offense to work. But when he's out there, he's really, really good. Has like almost 40 catches on the season already. I think he's second or third in the SEC in receiving yards. So he's been great.
45 receptions, 659 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, wow. So, that's right, because he had like 10. He was 10 for 10 in this game, I'm pretty sure.
10 receptions for 148 yards. And I think those were his stats at the end of the third quarter.
Oh, okay.
There was one play in particular that I wanted to mention. This was in the third quarter. South Carolina had scored and kicked a field goal to make it 17-10, and it was a pretty big drive for the Missouri offense, like needing to answer, and a touchdown maybe puts this away, but got to have points. And Missouri had the ball around their own 35-yard line. Brady Cook faked a sweep to Schrader, rolled out to his right, on the run, threw a beautiful pass to Lovett, just perfectly in stride at the sideline.
It's like
that did not look like something we should have seen.
I actually watched a replay of that play this morning, and it looked so nice. Like the way Brady threw it, like his body was just like in one continuous motion.
Yes.
Like he looked so like this. I mean, he looked like he wasn't calculating in his mind,
right,
which is what he normally looks like. He looks a little robotic, a little stiff. This play, he was just was feeling it.
Yep.
And you're right. They faked the pitch, kind of going the opposite way to Schrader, and then they had, I don't know who it was, but someone was running like a shallow route. Just doing that classic little 1 yard pass.
Yep.
And I feel like the defense bid on that.
Yep.
And Lovett got behind him.
Yep.
And it was probably like a 30-yard play, but it was beautiful.
Yeah, it looked like a NFL caliber throw.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, just how smooth and everything.
Yeah, he'd had a couple of deeper passes that were completed based on kind of some play action stuff that they were doing, and maybe it just hasn't worked, and I haven't noticed it this season, but felt like this game it worked really well, where they were kind of creating some confusion on fake handoffs and then just quickly getting the ball out for like deeper routes that worked several times.
Well, and I think South Carolina was making a concerted effort to stop the run. They didn't do a very good job, but that was kind of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, they probably said beat us through the air,
yeah,
because that's something we haven't shown we can do.
Right. So then hitting them with the play action worked perfectly several times. And Missouri did get bailed out on one play that probably should have been an interception when threw a deep ball to Mookie Cooper. That was probably a bad call, that defensive pass interference, but we'll take it. We've been on the other end of some of those. But overall, Brady Cook looked really good, and I can't complain about his performance at all, and he was helped a ton by the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Just night and day difference from the Vanderbilt game to this one.
Yeah.
They were making holes in the running game, protecting Cook well. South Carolina had 4 tackles for loss all game. There was a new starter on the offensive line, the Oklahoma transfer. I forget his name.
Ndoma Ogar.
He started, and Coach Drinkwitz said that because he started against South Carolina last year, they were able to look at that and see the matchups and stuff, and they felt comfortable putting him out there. And he said the offensive line had been struggling so much, they needed to make a change.
Yeah. It's obviously, I know a lot of you guys listening to this follow recruiting, and just kind of like, I know I've said this before, but just like watching the whole process like play out from even before, pre-commitment, and they commit, and then you kind of forget about them for a couple of years, and then they show up making a difference on the field. I feel like the offensive line was a great example of that, where Ndoma Ogar was in there, and Armand Mbou was in there, and like just making a difference like early on, really, in their careers, like earlier than you would expect them to make a difference, and coming in there and elevating the level of play is just really exciting for people, just Missouri fans in general, but I know especially the guys that are recruiting junkies, and it's just it's fun to see those guys finally make a difference. And yeah, the O-line was noticeably different and a lot better this week.
Yeah, we got to see it continue, though. I think South Carolina's defense, I mean, South Carolina did not look, aside from the touchdown drive where Spencer Rattler ran the ball in, that was the only time they looked like they had any fight whatsoever. And now Marshawn Lloyd getting hurt or being banged up, and he only had 7 carries on the game. That was pretty huge.
Yeah, because when he was running it, he had some serious juice. Man.
Yeah.
He looked really good when he did have the ball.
And I could see, him not being out there, that's going to affect South Carolina's offense, not just like being able to move the ball, but just like mentally thinking like, okay, we're in a hole, and now we have to overcome our running back not being out here.
Mm-hmm.
And Missouri's defense was incredible. I mean, we could talk about that for an hour probably. Let me before we get into the defense, so let me make sure. Let's finish up the offense here. Cody Schrader, 22 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. There was one stretch in the second half where I think he ran the ball like 8 times in a row.
Yeah, because they were trying to run some clock.
Yeah.
It was really late. I think it was like probably 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. But it was just, they knew exactly what we were doing, and it didn't matter. We were just getting like 6 or 7 yards a carry.
Yeah, he looked really good. He finished off a drive with a 1-yard touchdown early in the game.
Pretty much dominated the backfield, too. I mean, Elijah Young was in there some, but
only 3 carries for him.
I don't think we saw Pete at all.
No. And then going back to that big play in the third quarter, Cook to Lovett, that set up a Harrison Mevis 50-yard field goal attempt that he barely snuck by the upright. Honestly, the video, like the angle on TV, looked like he missed it.
Oh, yeah.
And now this was after he had already missed a 21-yarder, but he had made a 19-yarder and then followed that up with a 32-yarder later. So 3 for 4, not terrible. 50-yarder, love that.
That's what he does, man.
But
he just nails the long ones.
Some of those chip shots have been a little iffy.
Yeah, a little scary. Yeah, the one that he made that kind of snuck in there, I would have just bet everything I own that missed.
Yeah.
I just was already like dejected about it.
And the 32-yarder hit off the upright and still went in.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well,
yeah. Speaking of the backfield too, they had Taj Butts in there doing kind of like fullback stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah, lead blocker for sure. All right, now let's talk about the defense. Defense had 11 tackles for loss for the second game in a row. They had 11 against Vanderbilt and again 11 against South Carolina. And it honestly, I would have guessed that it was more like 15 before I looked at the stats, because they were all over the place in the backfield every play. Spencer Rattler was having to get rid of the ball early. He was making bad throws because of the pressure pretty much all game. They were fantastic. Defensive line stepped up, and the secondary was playing really good coverage, but also stepping up and making important tackles and just leaving no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, like everything was on point. Like you said, great tackling. They looked motivated all game. They know their roles, like so literally the opposite of last year, whereas like everybody was out of their spots and nobody knew what they were doing. This team, like, they clearly trust each other and their roles, and they know what they're supposed to be doing. And I mean, I just think that also just speaks to how Missouri has to win games a lot of the time. With recruiting, they got like 21-year-old kids out there, like at this point, like grown men playing on the D line, because those guys have been in the program, some of them for a really long time, with like, Darius Robinson or Isaiah McGuire. DJ Coleman is, like a 5th-year senior or something like that. They've got grown men out there, and it's starting to really show where those guys are just dominating pretty much any game they're in.
Yeah, McGuire was the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week, and Ennis Rakestraw was a top 10 what's it called? Pro Football Focus grade for the week of all defensive players. And there was only, I think, like 3 other defensive backs ahead of him in that list.
Yeah, he's
so top 5 DB for the week.
He's playing really well right now, and it makes such a big difference to have 2 great cornerbacks, because I mean, honestly, teams are wanting to avoid throwing at Chris Abrams-Drain right now, and I don't blame him. The dude is really, really good, and he's going to be playing on Sunday soon. But so it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll throw it at this other guy, Rakestraw. Okay, turns out he's probably almost as good. So, yeah, the defense is just elite at pretty much every level right now.
And causing turnovers, Spencer Rattler fumbled. Dalen Carnell picked up the fumble, and he's just like the guy for making those plays. He's got a nose for the ball. And defensive back Norwood had basically the game sealing interception towards the end of the fourth quarter. He had a good game.
Yeah.
I was just so impressed by the defense, and apparently so was the Mizzou administration, because it sounds like I think this is past the rumor stage because Coach Drinkwitz talked about it in his radio show, but apparently anytime now it's going to be announced that they've signed Blake Baker to an extension, given him a raise. We'll see. Maybe his title will change a little bit, maybe associate head coach or something.
That'd be interesting.
But that's not a guarantee. But it seems like Coach Drinkwitz tweeted that, or he said in the radio show that Blake Baker is going to be our defensive coordinator for a long time.
Yeah, that makes me very, very happy because, he has every right to go get a better job, and if he wants to be a head coach, he'll have that opportunity after the season. So that made me really happy to know. And just because he signs an extension doesn't mean he's going to be here forever, but it makes it a lot harder for teams to come poach him. So that's just tremendous news. And to know that, a great mind and someone who has clearly knows what he's doing, and a guy that the players trust, it's great to have that.
Yeah, after their performance against South Carolina, there was we were talking in Discord about locking him up long term and where he might be looking. And so I immediately was just like, okay, well, let's remind myself, okay, he played at Tulane. I don't think they're going to have a new head coach anytime soon. I was trying to figure out what schools are going to be after him. And I'm glad that
it was Missouri.
Yes, we shouldn't have to think about it. And if a team does want to buy out his contract, then that'll at least set Mizzou up nicely financially to be able to hire someone else. Let's see.
You mentioned Dalen Carnell. This might be a little bit blasphemous, but at this point, he and Martez Manuel play the same position. I think you could make an argument that he's almost maybe surpassed Martez at this point, and has a much higher ceiling. The dude is he's the rising star of the defense, man. Yeah. We've known that probably even since preseason, but it's just amazing to see him really kind of live up to that.
Well, the whole defense living up to, I'll never forget our excitement in the preseason, talking through the defensive side of the ball, going down the roster and thinking these guys are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And getting all excited and then realizing oh yeah, well, it's still the SEC and still everybody's good.
Yeah. But
I'm glad to see that at least our intuitions there were on the right track, or we got lucky because you look at every individual member and what they're capable of, and you're just thinking if they can just create some cohesion here, they're gonna be good. There's a lot of talent, and there was definitely did we take that too far? Yeah.
But
I was scaring myself at the time.
They've been even better than we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, and I think the difference between sort of my expectations and why I was second guessing myself in the preseason versus now what we've actually seen is the defensive line.
Yeah,
because that was a question mark for me. I think I had that as the weakest position group on the defense going into the season, and McGuire especially has really shown, he's got the physical stats, the height, weight, athleticism is all there, and he just hadn't quite ever put it together with production on the field, and he's doing that every week right now.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like some of that could just be the guys around him are making plays, and so the defense can't key in on him, but yeah, I agree that they're all playing really well.
Lloyd still looked good running the ball, but only had 7 carries for 30 yards. South Carolina as a team ran the ball 23 times for 32 yards. They had nothing going.
Pretty bad.
And Spencer Rattler did everything he could, but, Missouri basically said, okay, you're going to have to beat us, and he was nowhere near capable.
He's one of the most bizarre stories in the last year or two of college football. Just what happened to that guy?
Yeah. And he's still super young. He's got time to play several more seasons at South Carolina, or 2 more seasons at South Carolina, and turn it around. I don't think the book is written yet unless they bail on him. So let's see here. That makes Missouri now 4-4 on the season, right behind let's see, 2-3 in conference, so they're right behind undefeated Georgia and Tennessee, tied with Kentucky and South Carolina for third in the SEC East. And here comes Kentucky coming to town. Missouri coming off 2 wins, looking like it's going to be a sellout. It is 11 a.m. kick, but that should be fine. Kentucky, you called this in the preseason, that you didn't think Kentucky was going to live up to the hype of like challenging Georgia for the East.
Yeah, they've been pretty much exactly what I feel like I thought they would have been. Like, they're good, they're solid, they've got some good pieces. Will Levis is a future NFL quarterback. They're not bad, but I really had a feeling they would not be elite or push Georgia or anything like that.
They started the season 4-0 with wins over Miami, Ohio, Florida, Youngstown State, and Northern Illinois. Then have gone 1-3 with losses to Ole Miss, South Carolina. They beat Mississippi State, and then most recently got destroyed at Tennessee, 44-6. And Will Levis was out for the South Carolina game at least. I can't remember if he missed any others, but he looked terrible against South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I mean, they scored 6 points and gave up 44. Everything looked terrible for Kentucky against Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee is, I'm afraid, a national championship contender.
Well, they're number 1 in the playoff rankings.
Yes, they are.
Big game this week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a win over Mississippi State just 2 weeks ago. I definitely think Kentucky's still relevant. I don't think they're surrendering on the season or anything like that. Maybe they will want to after that Tennessee game. I don't know. So
we can hope
they're capable of beating anybody really, unless they have like a super explosive offense. So. Yeah, they're still really, really solid.
Will Levis on the season completing 68% of his passes for 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. The stats against Tennessee I wanted to mention: 16 of 27
Oh, okay.
For 98 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee obviously is explosive offensively, but I don't know that they were like hanging their hat on their defensive play by any stretch. So that was a little surprising to see that Kentucky just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I can't explain it. That was bizarre performance.
I heard Josh Heupel was getting looks for NFL.
That's fine.
That's fine. I agree.
See ya.
Goodbye.
Yeah, please take him.
He has been great everywhere he's coached, man.
Yeah, come coach the Panthers. I don't care. I'll just be rooting for the Panthers to just always pull the best up and coming coach out of the SEC and just to create a little chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Rodriguez still there. He's been there for 8 years. So far this year, he's got 460 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was suspended the first 4 games.
Yeah, so those numbers are actually pretty impressive for the fact that he hasn't played that much this year.
Yeah, he's I don't know. There's something that just doesn't really scare you about him. He's not fast.
Right.
He just, I don't know, but he's good though. He's a really good running back and he's big.
They've got 2 wide receivers to watch out for: Tavion Robinson and Barrion Brown. Mm-hmm. Robinson's been hurt a little bit. He was questionable for the Tennessee game, but he played. And then Brown is just a freshman, so they're not world beaters, but they're good, and they'll make big plays.
Really impressive for true freshman status, though. I mean, he's really, really good. He's going to be elite, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, we can just kind of hope that whoever the next Kentucky quarterback is, maybe they don't sync up perfectly on when they're peaking.
Yeah, I mean, Will Levis has been a revelation for them.
Yeah.
In the transfer portal. I mean, he was everything they could have ever hoped for in getting somebody for 2 years and then sending them on to the NFL. That worked out about as well as you could possibly hope for when you are in the transfer market.
Yeah. They do have a couple of good tight ends, too, especially Jordan Dingle. I just wanted to say his name. So looking at how Missouri matches up with Kentucky, the way I kind of see this going is they're 2 very similar teams, honestly. I think Kentucky will have more success through the air, and I think Missouri will have more success on the ground. And I think both teams will be okay with that. But I think the defenses are both going to show up and make it a struggle for the offenses. I think it's going to be fairly low scoring. And I do think it's a complete toss-up. Missouri at home, I love having the home field advantage here. This was a game in the preseason that I thought, oh, man, I kind of would rather have South Carolina at home. That seems like a more winnable game. I was kind of writing this game off as a loss early.
Did I pick this as a win preseason?
I think you did. It's clearly a toss-up right now.
It is.
Right? Like, we would be surprised if either team wins by double digits.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, just based on the makeup. Yeah, you said it. Like, Missouri's strength is their defense. Kentucky's strength is their offense right now. Their defense is decent, but early in the season, their offense has shown to be kind of the strength. Will Levis for sure. I would put Missouri's defense really up against anybody at this point, except for maybe not Tennessee. But and even that will be really interesting to see how Missouri's defense does. But at this point, any like struggling offense, I feel like Missouri's defense has a chance to just completely dominate. So this could be kind of a low-scoring game, maybe. We'll see. But Brady Cook's got to keep doing exactly what he did against South Carolina, just be good enough, get into the hands of the playmakers, let the defense do what they do, and squeak by, maybe. I don't know. That seems like kind of a weird game plan, but I mean, in this game, just whatever's necessary. Just get by.
Do you, for me personally, when I see the plays, like when I see the end arounds and the horizontal passing be successful against a team, we've kind of touched on this before, but I always have this feeling deep down like that'll only work against teams we're supposed to beat. And, those or teams with a defense that just can't keep up, not fast enough. And by default, I have a feeling that will not work against better defenses. Mm-hmm. So do you think Missouri will try to go back to those like touch passes to Lovett that were pretty successful? Or do you think they'll try to pivot away from that and use those as decoys more?
It did feel like this past game was a little more north and south than normal. And I still think there is some value to doing lateral stuff, just at least maybe early on. Like, again, I'm definitely not some kind of offensive genius, but sometimes I do feel like, maybe. I do feel like there is some value to stretching out the field laterally and kind of making the defense run all over the field and like kind of tire them out a little bit or make them feel like we've got to cover the whole field here because Missouri's going to use it, and then kind of go north and south on them when you feel like that's been established. I don't know if that's what the purpose is of those plays, but I think there's always going to be some value to it, but it does feel like we've kind of like strangely like almost relied on it,
mm-hmm.
like made that the priority,
mm-hmm.
when I think it's just should be used to kind of mix things up a little bit.
Yeah.
I love to see Missouri continue to do what they did in this game. Just no nonsense, north and south. Really be intentional with your fakes and, in the routes you run and, be intentional with how you bring in the defense and and maybe it really was just South Carolina not playing well, and so those things kind of stood out and were exposed a little bit more than they normally feel like they are. But whatever they were doing against South Carolina, I'd like to see them continue that.
Well, I think the opportunity is here against Kentucky to move the ball on the ground. I wouldn't be like Schrader ran the ball 22 times against South Carolina. Mm-hmm. That's like I'm putting the over-under at 20 carries for him in this one. And I would like to see Cook involved in a similar way as the past game as well. Kentucky's defense is solid, but not scary, especially their defensive line is young and hasn't been super productive. I think the stars of their defense are the linebackers. They have two linebackers, their top two tacklers, and they each have a sack and an interception on the mm-hmm. season. Yeah. So they're kind of do-it-all linebackers who kind of plug the holes.
Yeah, and I think that could be problematic for Brady Cook's like rushing game, especially after he's shown on tape last week how successful he was at doing that. South Carolina, he's done it all year, so South Carolina should have known that he's capable of it. They didn't look like they knew he could do that.
Right.
I think at this point Kentucky will be ready for that, and they, like you said, have great linebackers who can get to the edge probably faster than Brady Cook can. And if they feel like that's coming. So, that could be problematic.
man, it really just feels like two pretty evenly matched teams. And now I could look like an idiot for saying that if Kentucky, I think this Kentucky team at their very best beats Missouri at their very best by probably a touchdown.
Yeah, that's probably fair. But, Kentucky's offensive line has definitely been their strength in the last couple of years. A lot of those guys have moved on. Their offensive line is not as scary. It's kind of probably just kind of come down who executes better. That sounds...
Really, Kyle? Who executes better?
I would guess so, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to come down to some fluky turnovers, just who can protect the ball better, because I really do think it's going to be pretty even.
Yeah, I think I said that I think Kentucky will have more success through the air, but I think Missouri's defense can use that. I think Kentucky will feel comfortable just having Will Levis drop back and air it out. And so Missouri has to be able to turn that into big plays on the defense. And then if Brady Cook can keep the ball safe on his end, I think Missouri can be right there at the end. I think it might be an ugly game. Probably we cannot count on no turnovers from Missouri offense. We cannot count on as few penalties as we had last game. But I think Kentucky is susceptible to the same things. And I'm ready to make my prediction.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm thinking Missouri wins this game, and I'm actually giving the same score as I predicted last week for South Carolina that did not come true. I think Missouri wins the game 20. Actually, I can't remember if I said 20 or 21 last week, but I'm predicting 20-19.
Wow.
Harrison Mevis, game winner.
19. You love picking that. Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You think it's going to be
Missouri wins.
You picked Missouri to beat South Carolina last week, and I did not. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe in them.
Yes, you did. Give me a win. I think Missouri wins. Give me 24-20, Mizzou. And if they win, they're almost certainly bowl eligible because they will just have to then beat New Mexico State.
Yep.
So they basically, if they want to be bowl eligible, they have to beat New Mexico State, and then they basically have to win one of Kentucky or Arkansas.
Or Tennessee.
Yes. They could beat Tennessee, and also that would help towards bowl eligibility. I'm writing that off.
Okay.
Spoiler alert for next week whenever we play Tennessee.
Yeah. It would be very nice to be bowl eligible before the Arkansas game.
For sure. I 100% agree. And I at this point, I don't know that I would have said it 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I feel like Kentucky is a more winnable game for Missouri at this point, just based on how we match up. So
Than Arkansas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like this team maybe figured something out against South Carolina. It just finally all came together. Hopefully they're not riding too high off that win. But I think coming back home and seeing the packed out stadium, I think that the juice will be there again. And I just hope that wasn't a sort of...
Like we just blew everything in 1 week.
Yeah.
Well, we did mention how Drinkwitz seems to have the secret formula for whatever South Carolina wants to do. He's won 4-0 against South Carolina in his career, and that includes one game he played them at Appalachian State when he was there in 2019. So he is 4-0 against South Carolina. Missouri is 4-0 against South Carolina in the last 4 seasons. I have kind of enjoyed seeing South Carolina meltdown this week. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe after I watch some South Carolina content on Twitter, it's been serving it to me, which is just fine. I've been seeing interviews with the coach, and he's talking about how he doesn't want to make any staff changes and stuff. I mean, we literally we went in there, beat the socks off of them in their own stadium, and now they're kind of they're re-examining who they are as a team, and I love it.
What is our future here now?
Exactly. All the fans are wanting changes, and it's it's good to see someone else there.
Yes. All right, we're predicting wins. It's going to be close, though. Don't be surprised if they lose, but I think they'll be right in there till the end. If Brady Cook regresses majorly, then all bets are off. It could be a rough one, but If he just controls the ball, plays sound football, make a play here and there, we'll be right in it. Producer Cameron, you ready for us to pick the rest of the SEC games?
Oh, certainly.
I'm pretty sure I did terrible last week. I tried to make a move. It backfired completely.
Last week,
Rip to a real one.
Cameron got 3 points. Kyle got 5. I got 4. Guest pickers got 5.
Not as bad as I thought.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
So our season totals
This is
are...
where it's bad.
Cameron has 44. Guest pickers have 54. Kyle has 57, and I have 59.
Ooh, gaining a little ground.
Close.
I'm 10 points out of third place.
Pour one out for you.
Tyler picking this week?
Tyler is our guest picker this week.
Welcome back.
We got quite the slate this week.
Mm.
There could be a ruckus in the standings this week if I'm not careful, I guess. All right. First game is Florida at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 3.5-point favorite.
Tyler picked Florida.
As do I.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, give me Texas A&M. I hate doing that.
Okay, I'll take Florida. I just want to catch one of you. Looking like it'll be you. Just kidding.
Might be.
Next up is number 1 Tennessee at number 3 Georgia. Georgia is an 8-point favorite.
What?
This game's been marketed as number 1 versus number 1 because Tennessee's number 1 in the college football playoff rankings and Georgia is number 1 in the AP poll, which once the college football playoff rankings come out, the polls are irrelevant. They kind of always are, but
Yeah.
it's always interesting to see those initial rankings.
It is.
And how, like, oh, yep, actually Tennessee's the best team in the country.
Like how they're evaluating the teams and
Yeah.
stuff. Man, I picked Tennessee to beat Alabama, and they did. Could I go for the double?
Yeah, I mean, if Tennessee...
8-point favorites, man. I don't know about that.
Yeah, Georgia at home.
Mm-hmm. They're going to be...
What's
I won't try and convince you.
what else is out there? What are you guys doing?
I am so bad, I get to say last, I think.
Okay.
I decided.
Tyler takes Tennessee. I'm going to pick Georgia.
Oh my goodness.
I'll take Georgia. I'll say it.
Okay, I'll go Georgia as well.
Oh, man.
That's going to be a fun game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
There haven't been that many other SEC matchups this year. Like Tennessee, Alabama was one. There was like, I have to clear my schedule and make sure I can watch this game.
Yeah.
This is another one.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Actually, give me Tennessee. I change. I switch.
You picked Georgia,
Yeah.
and I picked Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think I think I'll kind of be rooting for Tennessee though.
I just think Georgia's
Sick
going to
of
be
you.
like, we should probably be number 1. We're playing at home. I think they're going to come.
Georgia
in.
has just not been super impressive. They kind of just do what they do, but
This is the Georgia defense
This will be
versus the Tennessee offense.
yeah, I mean, what is this? The best defense versus the best offense in
Mhm.
college football?
Mhm.
Well, you know what they say.
Defense wins championships.
They sure do.
Oh, well, this is not a championship game.
What?
It's basically the SEC East championship.
Okay, that's fair.
Next up is Liberty at Arkansas.
I didn't
Arkansas
follow
is
it.
a
I don't-
13.5-point favorite.
Yeah. Give me
What?
I said we're going to follow up Tennessee, Georgia with Liberty, Arkansas. Yeah, give me Arkansas.
Me too.
Liberty is like 7-1.
You know Malik Willis or whatever his name is doesn't play there anymore.
Well, they're not bad. I'll pick Arkansas.
Wow.
Tyler takes Arkansas as well.
I'm done picking against Arkansas.
The other top 10 matchup is number 6 Alabama at number 10 LSU. Alabama is still a 13.5-point favorite.
I didn't know LSU was ranked that high.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alabama for me.
Yeah, Alabama
Two.
by 1 million.
Alabama all around.
A
Mhm.
million, though?
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, they're Alabama, they're doing the classic thing where they're on the outside looking in right now, but it doesn't matter.
Is that the classic thing?
Saban's like,
they're either go undefeated or they do this. They lose a game and then they go,
And they're
okay,
still good.
yes, now we have to just win everything else and just blow everybody out.
They have
And
motivation now.
yes.
Okay.
Both scenarios end in them in the national championship game.
Okay. Real quick, maybe I shouldn't bring this up like publicly with an audience, but Saban, this is his last year, right?
Yeah.
I saw like one tweet about it, and
Wait.
then I saw nothing else ever after that. From I can't remember who would have tweeted that.
he's just trying to get the team fired up,
Is that out there?
And then it'll be like,
publicly?
never mind.
I mean, I feel like that would be a huge deal, and I've heard nothing about it since that first tweet.
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, well, I don't know what that tweet was.
Ooh.
It was from like
A reputable
yes,
person?
like Yahoo Blue Check pre $8 payment.
Wow.
I was going to say, you can buy those now.
Yeah, when credibility was real.
He says he doesn't think about retiring.
Okay.
Or something. That was in the end of July.
Wow. Okay, I probably shouldn't have said that on this podcast.
Well,
I feel like
all
I
the
heard
Alabama
something,
fans.
but maybe it was from you.
Yeah,
It
Kyle
was.
got us all excited. Like,
It was.
Nick Saban's retiring. He's 70 years old. If you just Google Nick Saban retirement, it says his career ended in 1971.
Nick Saban.
Yeah. That's not true.
That seems inaccurate.
It looks like that's when he got married. So maybe Google's making a joke there.
Oh my gosh.
We all picked Alabama?
Everyone's on Alabama.
Yeah.
Do you think that game and the Arkansas game are both 13.5 points? Which one do you think is actually closer?
Arkansas.
You think? Liberty gonna... I disagree.
Okay.
Okay, I guess
I'll write that down.
we'll probably forget that happened. I'll write that down, he said.
Next up is Auburn at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is a 13-point favorite.
Mississippi State.
I agree.
Yep.
Done picking Auburn.
We're done.
You failed me for the last time.
Except Harson's gone.
True.
They're gonna have that new coach
in-
bump.
Entering...
coach.
Yeah.
Entering coach.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Okay.
They're done.
Everyone's on Mississippi State.
Oh, wait. Missouri wish they would have just beat Auburn and they would have
Just
fired him
make
right
the
then.
Kick.
Wow.
Gosh, we'd be bowl eligible, basically.
Yep. Maybe next year.
Yeah, we won't play him for a while.
South Carolina at Vanderbilt. South Carolina is a 7-point favorite.
Vandervoort.
I'll take South Carolina.
Yeah, me too.
What's the line again?
7.
Okay, sorry to ask. Where's it at?
Pay attention, Kyle.
Vanderbilt.
Tyler picked Vanderbilt, I heard.
Yeah, he did actually.
Rumor had it.
He
Oh, yeah.
said, "Might not be wise, but got to make some moves."
Who you picking, Cameron?
South Carolina.
This other Cameron?
You have
Sorry,
any, you have any
you're-
other questions?
That will probably be it after
Who's
that.
playing?
I haven't picked yet.
Okay, give
Go.
me South Carolina.
Yeah, me too.
Oh,
You can switch.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh man, I'm not gonna win this
Did you do something?
competition.
You picked that already?
Yeah, I'll pick
You
South
do
Carolina.
something?
I'll pick South Carolina.
All
Who's
right.
Nebraska playing?
Freaking Minnesota. Minnesota is a 16-point favorite.
That's a lot of points. I think Nebraska covers, but Minnesota wins.
Row the boat. Is that a Minnesota thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, everybody's on Minnesota.
Oh wow.
Sad times.
Yeah.
Remember when Nebraska was like actually making games close, and I'd pick them every week, and I'd lose every week.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
Give us some free points.
Seriously.
Well, that's it for this week.
Okay.
Think
That
I
was
gonna say
actually
something
that
else.
was a great week. Actually, that was some good games.
I feel like a lot of the weeks have been pretty dull this year as far as like pick 'em
Pick'em?
goes.
Yeah.
You're just picking too many wins. It's just we're boring you at this point.
Yeah. Are you winning this whole thing right now?
Mm-hmm. Because Nebraska's bad, so I don't have to pick them.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
How if I pick them every week and they lose, I'd probably be like 5-6 points down right now.
Maybe you figured out a new strategy.
Nebraska be bad.
Yeah. You finally realized it. They had to fire their coach for you to realize that they're bad.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. But
Oh, okay. Is that it this week, Kyle? Are we done? Are we done here?
Yeah.
we're done. Time to go to work.
Big game against Kentucky. Fill up the stadium. Be loud.
Mm-hmm.
Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan DeMore, Tristan, Ben Smith, Parker, Daddy JD, Luis Hernandez, Tim Keens, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Garofalo, Brandon Hanks. Thank you.
You say that with the same like perfect rhythm like every time.
Gotta get it down.
Get in a rhythm.
Get in the rhythm. Thank you, gentlemen. This podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
My favorite thing about you guys doing the outro when I'm not here is just seeing what you're going to do for this part. You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week.